Okay, video number 4. You know, sometimes I have to try these things more than once just to get them to work right. Okay, here's where we left off. And I said that we were done with schematic. Well, you know, not totally quite. The footprint editor shows me that I've missed a couple of things. So we want connectors, pin header, pin socket, I guess. Let's go for pin headers. Everything else is pin socket. We'll use pin socket. We'll see what that looks like. Pin socket, 1x, you know, we got to assign footprints for a couple of these things. So 1x, that, let's see, 1 by 4, 2.54 vertical. This is a 4-pin. That looks good. And then the others are 5-pin. The vertical there. Okay, apply, save, close. Okay, so now I'll zoom back out. That should be everything. We'll find out. Okay, so going from here, I want to go to a board layout. And we've got nothing on it, as expected. So now there's a button here that says Update PC Board from Schematic. And when I click on it, it basically says what it's going to do. And it says 0 arrows, 0 warnings. So there's nothing suspicious in there. Let's say Update PC Board and close. And then when I do this, this happened before, and I think it's a bug in the firmware. I know that these are all the rat's nest lines that go between the parts, but it's not showing me the parts. So let me save that, close it, save that, close it, and then let me bring it back up. Let me try this, and if that doesn't work, we'll close everything. Okay, so closing it, bringing it back up. Here's what I was expecting. So here is all the parts that we're going to be building. And everything is, you know, this gives you an idea of how big things are. We can actually figure out, this will be a very hard to lay out this board, but if we're talking something that's on the order of, oh, we're in millimeters. Let me get to inches here. I think in inches, sorry. Something that's about, you know, 1.6 inches squared, somewhere in that range. So it's not a, you know, won't be that big of a board, but it'll take up a little bit of room. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to start moving these parts around and drawing the edge of the board so we can actually build the thing. Now, as you'll notice, the processor itself, those pins are just tiny, and it takes us a little bit of trace work to get around those things. We also have some design rules that are that I know that the manufacturer can make, and I think the default is set a little high. So I can edit predefined sizes. And in this thing, I got the constraints. And in inches, what do we got here? Minimum via hole, there's circles, vias, copper, minimum clearance, minimum track width. And we get 6 mils. That's 0.006. And clearance, we get about that same thing. I want to know if I go below that. So I'm going to set those two things. And we'll see what happens. Oh, I do want to add a width, though. So I want to say a track width. And I want to use 6.006 inches or 6 mils for all the signal things. And then I'm going to add a couple more that I just might use. For powers and grounds, if I can get by with it, I'm going to use a little bit bigger. I'll use 0.012. And then if I've really got space, I'm going to do 0.024. And we'll leave that. And if I need a bigger trace, we'll just add it in there as we go. I'm going to leave the rest of it there. Okay. So now, I also want to design the edge of the board. And, you know, I don't know how big it's going to be. So that's kind of a little bit of a challenge. And I've got to draw the outline in the edge cuts layer. Now, if I start off by just drawing a couple edges, that maybe give me some hints as to how things are going to work. And we've also got this snap size, this grid size, which allows me to align things a little better. And if I'm going to draw a board outline, when I get back to the beginning, I want to be able to close it exactly. So if I set my board dimensions grid clear to 0.1 inch, you can see that the cursor jumps, that's 1/10 of an inch on every movement. And I can draw my board outline in this. And let me just start by drawing 2 of the lines of it. So I'm going to do, the board outline has to be in the edge cuts layer. So if I click on that, I get the indicator here. And I'm going to just come down, and you can see these major slightly lighter dots. I'm going to just go down here a little bit further, and I'm going to just draw 2 lines. I'm going to draw from there. That's 2 inches. So that'd be 4 square inches total. If I want to do it square, I'm going to go to 3, and then I'm going to go up 3. And, the board won't be that big, but I'm going to start with a drawing that's a little bit bigger, and then I'll shrink out the edges. But the other thing is that I want my board to have nice round edges. And that's kind of a little bit of a problem. So what I can do is, instead of drawing it like that, let me just delete this trace. And I'm going to start 1 click up. So I'm still going to draw an edge cuts layer, but I'm going to start 1 line up. And then I want to go up to just, I want to go one click short of the bright dot up there. Okay. And the same with this one. Let me just delete this one. Again, my grid is still set at 0.1 inches. So I want to draw from 1 over to 1 less than that really bright spot. Okay. Let me zoom back in on this one here. Now we've got this arc command here. So if I click on that, it's going to want me to put the center in. And then I want to do this start, and then, oh, that's the wrong start. Okay, let me go back and do the arc. I want to put it here, and then I go from here to there. So now I've got this perfectly rounded corner that I can match on all sides. And that routes out much, much nicer. And again, I'm just going to do the one edge there and then start moving things around, and we'll see if we can make things fit. The goal is, you see at all these rat's nest lines, and I can flip them on and off. Tracks, zeros, V's for rat's nest. Okay. These blue lines that we were popping on and off here, what those are where traces will have to go eventually. So we want to kind of put our parts where we can get around all of this stuff. And this actually is what takes longer than anything else on your layout. If you spend your time doing this part right, the rest of it actually ends up being pretty straightforward when you actually go to run the traces. First off, let's get this. This is the USB connector. You know, they work way better if you have them on the edge of the board so you can actually place them where you want them. Now, I'm having a hard time putting it exactly where I want it because I still got my grid size too high. So I can come back here and set the grid to something really small. 1 mil. We can even go smaller than that. We'll go 1 mil. Okay. So now when I say move, I can put it exactly where I want it. And I'm going to put it right up like this. I still may need to go left and right, but the idea is I want to get parts near it that have to be near it, and just to keep things out. Now, on the schematic, let's go back to schematic for a second. You'll notice that we've got R1, R2, R3, and R4 all connecting straight to the USB connector, and the same with the D1. Now, if I click on D1, does this work on this still? It actually takes me there. So this is one of the parts. So let me just move my diode here. And I'm going to move it down here near this connector. And we said R1, R2, R3, and R4. Well, here's R4. That one comes down. I just need to get them out of the way a little bit. R3. So if I get things sort of in the way, then I can massage them a little bit as we go along. Now, after the diode, we've got a capacitor and a regulator. So we've got the diode, and then we've got C1, U2, and C2 all go together really pretty close to that, and that would probably be a good idea to keep them all just right in that vicinity. So let's move those guys around. So what did I say it was? It's C1 and C2. And the regulator. Here's the regulator. Let me just move that down out of here for the moment. C1 and C2. Well, I can see them right there. There's these guys. I'm just going to keep moving things around here. Okay, so that's my USB and stuff like that. So what I want to do is just give enough room to get things in place. So let's see, what do we got? We got, that's a ground, and then the next one is, that's a 4-pin, is the, connects over to the diode. And I know the diode can get a little bit hot. Let me do this. Let me move this diode. Let me rotate it. And I'm going to put it up pretty close to here. I need it far enough away that if I want to solder things. Now these labels are really in my way. Let me see if I can get the, over here I can click on objects, and then I can turn off values. Because I don't really care what the value of the component is at this point. All I care about is, you know, does it fit there or not, and, you know, where the wires go. But the rat's nest lines tell me where the wires go. So this one goes to here just fine. And then this 5-volt line, that could go in here too. And I really want to kind of ignore the labels on them. So maybe I'll even turn off the reference for the moment, because I'll move those around a little bit later. Okay, so there's the diode before the regulator, or the capacitor. So let's move this guy around. And I want to rotate these parts till they make sense to me. So I'm basically clicking on the part, then I use the M key to move it around and the R key to rotate it so it makes sense. Like this makes a lot of sense to connect it this way, because here's a ground. Here's your grounds, so those connect. The 3.3s connects. So if I click on this thing and I can rotate it, you can see that those two little teeny blue wires cross. But if I can rotate it around so they don't, then we're in better shape. Now, this part here, I mean, I can click on this one and rotate it. And, you know, this 5-volt goes over to here. Let me just move that a little bit over. In fact, I think I'll just move this down a little farther. Oops. You have to hit the escape key occasionally to get it to deselect a part. Let me just do this. I'm going to line up that edge there. I like my boards to look nice, so we're just going to line up that edge there and try to get that at about the same level as the... Okay, so I can run a trace around here, get those two together, and into that. That looks like it'll work. The 5 volt comes in here. There's the 5 volt, the 5 volt. Again, it needs to run to the rest of it. But that's a start. You know, I'm should have actually moved that USB connector over a little farther. So let me see if I can just move that as a group here. Okay, let's try that instead. Okay, that'll probably do. Now, these R1, R2s, those are really simple. The 5.1Ks, those just go to ground, and ground goes everywhere. So let's see if I can figure out where I can put those. Move. That pin goes there. Let me rotate this around. So there's the ground in that. Okay. I got another signal I need to get out of there, so I don't want to, and I need some room to work on it if things don't quite work out right. Let me move this guy out of the way for the moment. That's my other one. Let's try this. That one goes clear on the other side. Yeah, maybe we'll do this. Now these guys are the actual USB signals. So maybe what I want to do is this. And I just have to keep the boxes around these apart. I can be really, really close. So you can see I've got the USB DM and DP right next to each other by these two pins that need it. Now let me just slide this guy over a little bit more. And I'm going to just connect both of these. I kind of like they're together like this. And I'm just going to move them over a little further. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this guy, because I could just bring it in here. Okay. Now these two aren't at the same elevation. Let me get this. So now look, these wires don't cross. I can just run them straight to there. That should be really easy to do when I get to routing traces. I've got this will be easy. This comes around. This is my 5 volt, or the USB power. Then the output of this is the 5 volt into the regulator. The cap's there, all nice and close to the regulator. So that looks like it should work just fine. My USB connector's near the edge where I can reach it. And I left a little bit of gap here because when I put these boards together, sometimes I get shorts on the USB connectors. I need a little bit of room to get a soldering iron in here. You learn that from experience when you have to fix something that doesn't have a lot of room. Okay. So I'm going to leave that alone right now. The other part I need to get in here that's convenient is these, the ULN 2003s, which are these two ICs along with these connectors. Now I can move things as a group, but let me just take this connector and I'm going to move it over here right up next to the edge, kind of where I want it. But I'm going to want that in the exact location. I'm going to want it like exactly a 1/10 of inch from the edge. I want them all to match nicely and all that sort of stuff. So the problem is its location is probably not nice. So if I select it and hit the E key, I get this window that describes it and all that sort of stuff. Here is my location, position X and Y. If I take this position, I can edit it directly. The 6.887, let's just make that 6.9. That's the left and right direction. And the Y direction, I want to also go to the 1/10 of an inch. So I'm going to go to 2.2. So now that's in a really, really fixed spot. I'll take the next one. And I'm going to want it to be right in the X line with it. But I don't want it right at 1/10 inch apart. Let's make it 0.2 out. Now, obviously, I just kind of kerplunked it there. It's probably not going to be where I want it. So I hit this. So I was close on X. I have 6.9 is where it needs to be. And then let me give it to 2.8. Again, I'm just putting it to a 1/10 of an inch. So now this is exactly 2/10 of an inch here. So if I go measure from here to here, that's exactly 0.2. Okay, next one. And it looks like it should go there. Okay, so again, oops. E key, not the R key. 9.0 and 3.4. I was pretty close on that one. Okay, so those are my 3 stepper motor drivers. I will may move them around, but when I go to move them, if I keep the snap connected, they'll stay in relationship to each other very nicely. So now let me grab one of these guys. And you can see it's connecting to these. So this can be really close. I just have to have enough space to get the traces in. Same with this. And again, I can move these around as I go. And then I've got the 2 laser pointer things. Move. Now, they don't have to be all on the same side. And maybe that doesn't make any sense. So, do I want to put them there or not? I don't know. We'll start here, and we'll see how it goes. Sometimes it takes me several tries to get them where I want them. So this should be 6.9. And let's go for 4.0. And it should look something like that. And there's my 6.9 and 4.3. So now when the board comes out, those holes will be in perfect alignment. They'll be on 1/10 inch center spacings, so it'll all look really nice. Now if I want to move that whole assembly down to the tight into this corner, I can change my grid to 0.1 inch. And I can come in here and let me zoom out just a little bit here and I'll zoom back in. So if I come in here like this, select these guys, and say move, I can take them right down to the corner. Now let's move these down too. when I actually lay out the board, I may actually want to rotate these across the top and make the board smaller. I may do that yet. I haven't, it takes a few shots to get these things. But anyway, this is, first shot at moving the boards around. And I think that's probably enough for the moment.